Thundercats, ho, bitch! Yeah, guess what I did Friday night? Got to see the new Thundercats reboot, and as a fan of the original series, I have to say I'm really happy with it. Very promising start to what I hope is a very successful reboot. Yeah, I didn't watch SmackDown, and I don't plan on watching SmackDown anytime soon, especially now that the Thundercats show is going to be on Fridays on Cartoon Network. So that's assuming the show stays good. But yeah, really happy with how it turned out. They made Tiger kind of an asshole, which kind of took me by surprise. Because the old show, he was like, even by like 80 standards, he was a goody-goody. It's like, I'm a man's man, and I do all the right things, and that's the right thing to do. And here they just made him a smug little asshole. But, you know, it's kind of cool. And I really marked out for Gruden the Destroyer. He was one of my favorites as a kid. So, yeah, really happy with the Thundercats reboot. I saw Harry Potter, Deathly Hallows Part 2. Great finale to the series. Harry Potter is something that I became a fan of, and I didn't think I ever would. When it first became popular, I'm like, really? A bunch of kids going to wizard school? That sounds lame. But you never know what'll work, I guess. It's like, who would have thought that concept would have been so compelling? And, yeah, this was a great way to end it. I don't know what I'm going to do now without the movies. Because even when the books were over, it was like, yeah, I still got the movies, but now it's, yeah, it's actually like all over now. So if you're a Harry Potter fan and somehow you haven't seen the movie yet, go check it out. I also saw Captain America, which I highly recommend. I really, really enjoyed it. I've liked all the Avengers films, and they're just, I guess they're 5 for 5 now. Captain America, it had a very Raiders of the Lost Ark-esque feel to it. And when I heard that the same guy that directed The Rocketeer directed this, I was like, yep, totally, makes sense. It was just an enjoyable, old-school kind of film. And it was fun. It was just a lot of fun, and I'm psyched for the Avengers. I gotta wait a year for that, unfortunately. DC, get your shit together. But, you know, I keep holding out that we're gonna get, like, a good Justice League set up, but Green Lantern, I didn't see it, but everyone's told me it sucked, and I'm not surprised. The previews looked horrible. And, you know, I have no faith that they can do Superman right. The Wonder Woman show, you know, that failed. All they have really is the Nolan Batman, and, you know, once he's done with his third movie, you know, that Batman goes right back into, you know, uncertain territory. So, yeah, DC, get your shit together. Marvel's kicking your ass. So yeah, television and movies. I've really enjoyed myself this week, but wrestling, gotta get into that. Let's start with TNA, and I've been more positive towards TNA lately, but I have to point out a couple of things that bother me about what they plan on doing or what's in the works. Number one, Bound for Glory series, which I still praise as a great idea, and I hope that becomes an annual thing, because I just think that's a really, really good idea. I'm a little worried of the people that they're selecting to, like, rack up the points in this thing. And granted, you know, we still got a ways to go, so the whole thing could change by the time No Surrender rolls around. But, you know, Crimson's on top, which I expected because they want to preserve his undefeated streak. But, you know, dude is shitty Goldberg. He's shitty Ginger Kid Goldberg. That's what Crimson is. I don't see much of a future in that guy. Gunner, and I've said this about him, he is to CM Punk what Sam Worthington is to Arnold Schwarzenegger, because he looks a lot like Punk and shit like that, but he lacks anything that makes CM Punk cool. And that's kind of like the same way Sam Worthington is with Arnold, where it's like he's casting a lot of the same type of roles as Arnold was, but he's nowhere near as cool. So, you know, I fall asleep whenever he's on screen. And that's Gunner. I mean, he's just, you know, he's just bland as chalk. And here he is, he's one of the top guys in the Bound for Glory series. Not Robert Roode, not AJ Styles, not James Storm, not the Pope, not even Scott Steiner. I'll fucking take Scott Steiner over Gunner. Yeah, I mean, that's who you put your faith in. Okay, have fun. Joe's doing a losing streak, you know, whatever, because that always works. I know I hate losing streak angles because they never fucking work. You're not going to get a guy over by having them lose all the time. And then you got Devon, who's really up there in the rankings, and I'm thinking, what the fuck, man? Like, dude, he's the guy that should be eating the pin every week. Like, that should be his role in this, not the Pope or Samoa Joe. I mean, he should be, like, bottom of the barrel in this thing. I mean, you know, what I mean, he's gone as far as he's ever going to go. I mean, no knock on Devon, but you spent 2 decades as a tag team wrestler, and you've gone as far as you're ever going to go. So, but again, we'll see how the Bound for Glory series plays out. I assumed it was going to be either AJ or Rob Van Dam who was going to win this thing, but who the hell knows at this point. Hulk Hogan's going to be returning to the ring. I mean, this last episode of Impact pretty much confirmed that. Does anybody want to see that? Can anybody honestly say that they want to see Hulk Hogan wrestle again? Because the last time we saw him wrestle, we've already had like the nostalgia pushes with Hogan. I mean, we got that at WrestleMania 18. That match with The Rock probably should have been his last match. But I mean, there's no mystery surrounding whether or not Hogan can go. We know what we're going to get, and he's had 47 back surgeries and a plastic hip and everything else. We're not going to get a whole lot out of him, so why is he going to wrestle Sting at Bound for Glory? I mean, we know it's coming, but... And they had a shitty match in 97. Even with the greatest build-up, ever, they still had, a really shitty match. So, yeah, I don't want to see that. There's talk that Ric Flair said this, so, I don't know how trustworthy that is, but Ric Flair said that he's going to face the winner of Angle and Sting at Hardcore Justice, which... Come on! Flair looks like he's going to die in the ring. I'm sorry. I'm going to go that dark with it. He looks like he's going to keel over and die. I do not want to see Ric Flair die in the ring. I have no desire to see that. He looks horrible. He bleeds all over the place. I could blow on him, and he would, bust open. That's how, fragile he is at this point. He looks like he's a giant pimple that's about to explode. And giving him a title shot against either Angle or Sting would just be horrible. I don't want to see him wrestle Sting again. The Nitro match, the last Nitro should have been their final match. Period. I truthfully think that probably should have been the last match for both guys. Because Flair's become an embarrassment ever since. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, yeah, he had the match with Michaels, and yeah, he had that TLC match with Edge and shit, but for the most part, he's been kind of a joke. And Sting's not going to be able to get a good match out of him at this point in 2011. And then you have Kurt Angle, who carried him to a semi-respectable match in, I believe, 2005. But Flair looked awful in that match. I mean, I remember that Angle Slam spot they did where they were going to do the Angle Slam off the top rope, and Flair, decided, mid-setup that he couldn't do it, so he just kind of flubbered down to the ring. And when it was over, he was gassed out. He looked like he was going to roll over and have a heart attack. He looked awful in that match. But Angle was able to make something respectable out of it. And I still think Angle is, if he's not as good as he ever was, he's close enough to it to where it's passable. But I don't think he can get a decent match out of Flair at this point. I mean, we'll see. But I'm not going to get my hopes up. And, of course, the last thing I want to get into is what happened on Monday Night Raw this week. And I have to say I'm very surprised at how much this episode has been praised. A lot of people really seem to like it. I got to be honest, I walked away from the show, really kind of disappointed. All this talk of it's going to be a new era and all this stuff. By the time the show was over, I felt like we were right back where we were a month ago. Number one, the tournament was completely pointless. That's... What else can you say? The winner just got fed to John Cena on a silver platter, which, how does that not make Cena the heel? Again, you have this guy wrestle his heart out to win the belt in Rey Mysterio, and then later in that same show, he has to face a fresh John Cena who hasn't wrestled since the pay-per-view. So, yeah, that's fair. Is he in cahoots with Triple H? That's probably where the story should go, because that would be the only thing that makes any sense, but... They probably won't, because they're so reluctant to turn Cena heel. So, yeah, when Cena won the belt, and I knew it was coming, I absolutely knew it was going to happen the second that match was signed, I was just like, oh my god, fuck a doodle-doo, here we go again. Number 11 for Johnny Boy, which again, I'll say it again, once you've won, when you get into that 8, 9, 10, 11 range, does it really matter if you win the belt again? Seriously? I mean, really, even if I like Cena as a character, at this point, would I even give a shit if he won it again? But then the show ended with CM Punk coming out to Cult of Personality, which, cool song, by the way. Sounded really good for him, but he came out, and the way he came out, it's like, oh, he's back now. And I was like, oh, think you hot-shotted it, WWE. Because the whole appeal of the Punk angle for me was that you have this guy who wins the WWE title and then just walks out with the belt. That has never happened before. Not in the WWE anyway. And, not in a storyline capacity. And I just thought it was really interesting, and they could have made Punk an even more compelling and an even more special character if they'd kept him away for a while and made his appearances sporadic and unpredictable. Again, going back to Sting in '97, where he was the most over guy in the show and he wasn't always on the show. That's how special his appearances were. And I felt like they could have done that with Punk. And, I would have tuned in just to see when and where he's going to show up. And, they could have almost made Monday Night Raw into like the Punk sightings. Is he there? Is he going to be in the crowd this week? Is he going to show up with the belt? Is he going to show up with his own redesigned version of the belt? Is he going to jump the Rock at Survivor Series? Is he going to come in with like the Kings of Wrestling or something? Are they going to jump the barricade? Is he going to ruin the title match at SummerSlam? Is he going to do this? Is he going to do that? Is the new WWE champion going to call him out and challenge him to a unification match? I mean, there's so many things they could have done with this, and I feel like they kind of threw that out the window because it's like, oh, well, he's back now. Which a lot of people were like, oh, yay, Punk's back. And I'm thinking, he was only gone for 8 days. We didn't even get time to miss him. So I was kind of disappointed because it feels like, well, you're right back where you were a month ago. This whole Triple H era looks a lot like the old one. And I overall wasn't happy with how this episode of Raw turned out. I'm not going to be a negative Nelly and say that the angle's completely fucked, or that Punk's ruined or anything like that. This isn't a Matt Hardy and Edge thing yet, because I think to me what really killed that angle was when they brought Matt Hardy back to the roster as soon as they did. They were having him be that rebel who was jumping the crowd, jumping the Edge, would come in through the crowd and shit. And he became a rebel, but then Vince just rehired him 2 weeks later. It's like, well, you killed your rebel, because he's part of the system now, so, okay, whatever. But I think they could have done something like that with Punk, and they hot-shotted it. We'll see how it all plays out next week. I am still going to be watching Raw every week to see how it all goes. But I don't know. I think part of what made this angle so interesting, I feel like, is kind of dead now, and that's disappointing. But, we'll see. I'm sure they did it because they want to have a big special match at SummerSlam, and to be fair, SummerSlam has not been special for a long time. The last time I really felt like SummerSlam was truly special was when it was Hogan and Michaels in the main event. That was something that had an air of specialness. Specialness? Is that even a word? I don't know. I should go find that dictionary that I hucked across the room a couple months ago, but I'm just going to keep saying it. The specialness. It made that SummerSlam kind of feel like a WrestleMania. And, going back to the Attitude Era, I mean, the Highway to Hell 98 SummerSlam felt like a WrestleMania. Jesse Ventura showing up in 99 made that show feel like a WrestleMania. SummerSlam hasn't had that in a long time. I'm not saying there hasn't been good matches. Like Edge and Taker and Hell in a Cell a few years ago was very good. But for the most part, I mean, SummerSlam just hasn't had that same oomph to it that it used to. So that's probably why they're doing this. They want to hotshot a Punk and Cena rematch for the big pay-per-view. But again, I just kind of feel like it's short-term gains at the expense of long-term achievements. And you could have gotten, a Punk Cena rematch would be big, but I feel like they could have gotten like 6 months out of it. And even Cena winning the title, it would have, if they had actually flat out just turned Cena heel and aligned him with Triple H or something like that, I mean, that would have been a perfect setup to eventually build to this rematch, as Punk's the only guy that can beat him, or something like that. I don't know. But, it's just kind of all out the window now. But, I don't want to get overly negative. I don't want to say that they've completely fucked it up and it's the worst thing ever or anything like that. We'll find out next week and see how it goes. But I was a little, I had a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth at the end of Raw this week. But, it's not the end of the world. So, yeah, that's all I got this week. If you're a Thundercats fan and you have not seen the new show, go do that. It's pretty good so far. If you're a Harry Potter fan and for whatever reason you haven't seen the movie yet, although recent box office numbers suggest that you have, go see that. If you haven't seen Captain America, go see that. It's awesome. And continue to watch Raw, Impact. And if you watch SmackDown, I don't, and I'm not going to, with Thundercats on every week, but if you watch SmackDown, have fun with that too. And I will be back next week. So later, everybody.